All right. So now we're alive on all of our formats. And I tell you what, here we go. Here we go. Happy Friday to you. Wherever you are in this world, hopefully you're having a good Friday. That's, I tell you what, I was just talking to my friends there on TikTok, and I'm ready for the winter. I am ready to go. I am ready for the snow. I am ready for minus 20 degrees, which we never get in Kentucky anymore. But I am ready to go. I am. I'm just, I'm not a summer guy. I love the fall because usually around September, I change the background for fall. So it looks like leaves. It's just something that I like to do. So, but I'm ready for the fall and I'm ready for the winter. Winter, let me tell you. Yeah, I moved to Kodiak. I am, Judy Ann, I am not going to Kodiak. Now look, Kodiak Island, folks, is no, you want me to be eaten by bears. So Judy Ann's there saying, let's go move to Kodiak Island. See, Kodiak Island in Alaska, Alaska, they have massive, big old bars. And hey, little bear, come on up. How you doing? I'll be a snack. That'll be fun. Okay, everybody, welcome to the presentation. Allergies are kind of kicking my rear end today, so we'll push through it. So, if my voice sounds a little crackly or whatever, you understand that it's allergies. What are you going to do? I'm in Kentucky. Well, we do have black bear in Kentucky, but we don't have those great big old Kodiak brown. Let me tell you something. Those Kodiak brown bears, they are no joke. They are no joke. They're beautiful animals at a distance, at like 500-mile distance. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's get into the presentation, everybody. First of all, I want you to go to this website, KGRAD as in dog, B as in bicycle, KGRADB.com. And I want you to make sure you subscribe. But put Bishop as your promo code because you're going to get 30% off your subscription. So why not? You should do it. They have some really great sites there, by the way. They have great shows, the terrific shows. And it's a great site. So I encourage you, make sure you put Bishop as your promo code and you'll get 30%. So if you love the paranormal like I do, then you're going to love that website. If you want to go to my website, it's very simple, bishopjameslong.com. bishopjameslong.com. And by the way, on that website, my online classes are free. So if you want to take the classes, you can do so. Just click on the class link. And when I had it, it was very inexpensive as it was. It was only $12.50 a class. And the Coast Trolls made a big deal out of that. But anyway, so we're just giving it away for free. It's all online. And but if you'd like to make a donation to the church to help the clergy, that would be fantastic. And there's a link there too. So just it's there for you. And then of course the church's website, usocc.org. So if you want to know more about me, the church community that I belong to, well, there you go, usocc.org. I want to remind everybody that a lot of people are asking me, well, thank you very much there, Hudson. A lot of people are asking me about, taking on a case that they have issues with. Folks, here's the deal. I have a lot of social media outlets, and people are slamming me with help in all of my outlets, and it's becoming almost impossible for me to keep up. So here's what we have to do from now on. If you want me to help, or if you want the clergy to help, you have a situation and you're wanting us to get involved, you need to go to bishopjameslong.com. Click on the paranormal link, fill out that form. And a member of the Society of St. Benedict will reach out to you. And people say, well, I don't think you should do that. Give me a break. I mean, really, see, that's the problem. We have to do it because if we don't, then I can't keep up. You can't keep up with 15,838 emails in 4 days. And it's just too much. It's too much. So I try to do the best I can. And now I don't know how many messages on TikTok now, but I do the best I can. So this is why we, right. So this is why we ask people that if you want help, and we don't charge anyway. So to make a demand on someone who doesn't charge is kind of rude. It's not kind of, it's very rude, but the reason is we do that is because it's so hard to keep up and juggle all these requests that sometimes the help gets lost. And I don't want your email getting lost. So if you legitimately need help, This is why we want to funnel it all through one source. And that way your email won't get lost in the shuffle. So actually, I'm doing it for you. So it helps everybody. It helps us help you, because then people see, hey, Bishop Long, I sent you an email 3 months ago, and I'm like, look, I have 15,000 emails. I do the best I can. I don't get paid for this. I don't receive a salary from the church, so I try to get through them. But so I think most of you understand. I don't think it's it's not that big of a oh my gosh. So just help us help you, and go to bishopjameslong.com and click on the paranormal link. Fair enough. So we would appreciate if you guys do that. Also, I do want to say this. Now on Sunday, someone put a message. I was going to do a video on TikTok, but someone sent me a message on TikTok saying, "Is this all you do? It's on TikTok. Do you actually have a real ministry?" And so my reply to them was, "You are making a rude comment because I made a 60-second duet on a video. Did you know there are 24 hours in a day? And I actually watched the video for 60 seconds. I watched it and I gave you my opinion, and it took 60 seconds. And then, of course, I reply, you don't ever do anything for Jesus." Okay. So let me address this real quick. Every Sunday and Wednesday, we have Bible study at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I've been doing that for quite some time. And we also have night prayer Monday through Friday, which we're having tonight. And we have that at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we pray for your prayer requests. The community all gets together and we pray. I also am a chaplain. So I do chaplaincy. And of course, I help with a lot of other issues as well with the clergy. So anyway, just please understand. We'd love to have you guys. If you've never been to any of our Bible studies, it's Sundays and Wednesdays. And it starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it airs right here on TikTok on my profile. And it also airs on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and Twitch, and Spreaker, of course. So it's every Sunday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Now, tonight, and we'll get into the presentation in just a second, but tonight we have night prayer. So if you would like for our community to pray for your petition live during night prayer, then all you got to do is this. Go to bishopjameslong.com, scroll all the way down, and you'll see where it says night prayer, and you just click that link. And it's strictly audio, okay? So it's not video. So just make a free account on Spreaker. That's what I use, Spreaker. I love Spreaker, by the way. And just make a free account, and you'll be able to chat with us. So there it is. Fair enough? Yeah, right. Okay, so happy Friday to you guys. Hopefully, wherever you are in this world, you're having a good Friday. And I tell you what, though, where are you guys? I'm just curious. Before we do this presentation, where are you guys from? I would love to know. Just a brief, what state or country. I would really love to know that. So Alabama, UK. Well, hello, the UK. Ohio, New Jersey, and Tennessee. Georgia, Fort Wayne, Pennsylvania, Philippines, California, Oregon. My gosh, you're going so fast. Chicago, Ohio. I have a lot of chats open, so it's like Texas, Colorado. Colorado is beautiful, by the way. I'm very jealous that you're in Colorado. Michigan. Oh, Natural Bridge, Virginia is beautiful. Good old Kentucky, so am I. Florida, Scotland, UK, Ireland. My gosh, North Carolina, Canada. See, isn't this amazing? Mississippi and Arizona, Idaho. What's so amazing? Los Angeles. I've been to. I went to LA when I filmed Eli Roth Presents Legions of Exorcist show, which, by the way, you can watch that. I don't know where it's streaming, but it's streaming on one of the platforms. But a lot of people really love that show. I thought they did a good job. It's called Eli Roth Presents Legion of Exorcists. Well, thank you, Robert. And I was a cast member. And so what they did is they brought exorcists together, and we talked about our cases, and they reenacted those cases with actors. I thought they did a great job. Oh, it's streaming on Max? Okay. So, I loved doing it. And as a matter of fact, Father Sean, for those of you who watch the show, when I met Father Sean, I talked to him, and I said, you should really be a priest. Because Father Sean, if you ever meet him, Father Sean Whittington, if you ever meet him, he has this glow about him. He's just a sweet heart of a soul. He's just one of those people that you're like, okay, you're good quality. You're a good quality. You're one of those rare people. And he said, well, yeah, but I'm married. And I said, well, with the United States Old Catholic Church, you can be a priest. You can be with us. And his mom always wanted him to be a priest. And he said, so we talked about it, and he started studying from the seminary, and then he completed the seminary program, and he was ordained. So I got to ordain him. And it was a special moment. So he's a great guy. Yep. And Rita. Yeah, now Rita's not with the United States Old Catholic Church, but yeah, I know Rita too. Yeah, that's a great cast. There's some good people. Really, honestly, the cast members on that show, I consider them my friends, and they're good people. They really legitimately are. And so I was honored to be a cast member with them, every one of them. So, okay. Tonight we're going to talk about something that's cool, I think. A lot of times we talk about obviously the paranormal on Fridays, but I wanted to talk about tonight something that might hopefully interest you: real terrifying encounters and haunted mysteries. Something different, something new, because I thought this would be really cool to talk about actual encounters that people have had, and even talk about haunted mysteries. Yeah, Father Sean does do a radio show. You can go on his Facebook page, and he posts that there. I think he's on summer vacation now, I think. But yeah, he can. Yep, this is my St. Michael statue. I bought that on Amazon, and they did a great job packaging. So that was it was really cool. But yeah, it's a beautiful statue. So for those of you who can barely see it, there you go. There you go. And here is a candle of the Blessed Mother. And of course, Jesus. Okay, so here we're going to go talk about, that's okay. That's okay. Today, we're just going to chill. And by the way, tomorrow I will be here at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for open mic night. I don't know if Miss Wilma will be here. I hope she is, because she's missed so many shows because she's been sick. So we will see. We will see. Hopefully. So from 8 to 8:30, we just goof off, and then at 8:30, I present articles that I read and I wanted to share with you, and we just open mic. We just chill. See? What's a background? It's kind of like a background. I know there's a pumpkin here, and I get it. I kind of wish it wasn't here. I would love to find this background without the pumpkin, but I couldn't. So. It's just this is the only time that I use this on Fridays, because it's Paranormal Fridays. All right, everybody. Bruce. Oh yeah, Bruce. By the way, I called you the other day, babe. I called you the other day and left a message for you. So I don't know if you got that, but we'll have to chat. All right, let's talk about some really mysterious unsolved mysteries that can't be explained, and some of these are really crazy. Okay. Moderators, let me know if you want me to turn on sub chat only. Right now, it looks like everybody's doing okay. So as long as everybody's just being nice, and also please make sure you like TikTok, like on Sundays and Wednesdays, I've turned off the GIFs. So unfortunately, because I've done that, my algorithm has dropped. And so, what we need to do is kind of like as much as we can. So just keep tapping, tap, and then that pushes us back into the algorithms, and people will say, oh, let's check out this live some. All right. Is there a prayer for a bad internet connection? Yeah, I have pretty fast speed, so I pay extra for, extra. So I'm not really for sure, but you might want to refresh. Okay, listen to this. This is a crazy story. And just let me know, moderators, if we needed to sub chat only, but hopefully we won't have to. The Green Children of Woolpit. This is I read this the other day. This is one of the craziest stories I have ever read. Listen to this. It says here, at harvest time, one day during the reign of King Stephen, which is about 1135 to 1154. According to William of Newburgh, the villagers of Woolpit discovered two kids, a brother and a sister, beside one of the wolf pits that gave the village its name. Their skin was green. They spoke an unknown language, and their clothing was completely unfamiliar. This is the craziest thing. Ralph of Cogshell reports that the children were taken to the home of Richard Calnair. Richard and William agreed that the pair refused all food for several days until they came across some raw broad beans, which they consumed eagerly. The children gradually adapted to normal food and in time lost their green color. And it was decided to baptize the children, but the boy, who appeared to be the younger of the two, was sickly, and unfortunately he passed away before or soon after the baptism. Now, after learning to speak English, the children, Ralph says, just the surviving girl, explained that they came from a land where the sun never shone, and the light was like twilight. So William says the girl called their home St. Martin's Land. And Ralph adds that everything there was green. Folks, this is a true story. And according to William, the children were unable to account for their arrival in Woolpit. They had been herding their father's cattle when they heard a loud noise. And according to William, it was like the sound of the bells of the Bury of St. Edmund's Abbey, and suddenly found themselves by the wolf pit where they were found. And Ralph says that they had become lost when they followed the cattle into a cave, and after being guided by the sound of bells, eventually emerged into our land. Now, according to Ralph, the girl was employed for many years as a servant in Richard de Calnay's household, where she was considered to be very wanton and impudent. And William says that she eventually married a man from King Lynn's, about 40 miles. You guys I can't bring you on, I'm sorry. Because I have the show on many different platforms, and so they can't hear you or see you. And William says that she eventually married a man from King's Lynn, about 40 miles from Woolpit, where she was still living shortly before he wrote. And based on his research into Richard de Calnay's family history, the astronomer and written Duncan London has concluded that the girl was given the name Agnes, and that she married a royal official named Richard Barr. This is insane. Yeah, when I saw that, I have to talk to you guys about this. Have you heard of this? But they said that there was the sun was never in the sky, and there was always twilight. Everything was green. They spoke this strange language that they couldn't figure out. Now, here's some explanations for this. In 1998, Paul Harris argued for a, quote, down-to-earth explanation of the green children in the context of 12th century history. Now, he identifies them as children of Flemish immigrants who arrived in eastern England during the 12th century and were later persecuted after Henry II became king in 1154. But it doesn't describe why, it's always twilight. Now, he proposes that the children's homeland of St. Martin's Land was the village of Flannan St. Martin, just north of Bury St. Edmunds, and suggested that their parents were Flemish cloth workers settled there. And furthermore, in 1173, Flannan was the site of the Battle of Fornham, and during the Civil War between King Henry II and his son, the young King Henry. And rebel forces led by another individual, and together with a large number of Flemish mercenaries, had landed in Suffolk, but were defeated by royal forces. Okay, well, the Flemish mercenaries were unfortunately unalived. And Harris suggests that there might have been violence against peaceful Flemish settlers in that area, and the children may have fled and ultimately wandered into Woolpit. Disoriented, bewildered, speaking no English, dressed in unfamiliar Flemish clothes, the children would have presented a very strange spectacle to the Woolpit villagers. So Harris believed that the kids' color could be explained by hypochromic anemia, also known as chlorosis or green sickness. This is a thing, the result of dietary deficiency. And in the follow-up article, John Clark drew attention to some problems with Harris's use of historical evidence and remained unconvinced by the identification of the kids as Flemings or their colors as due to green sickness. Well, so Brian Houghton describes Harris's hypothesis as the most widely accepted explanation at present, and maintains that it certainly suggests plausible answers to many of the riddles of the Woolpit mystery. You guys have to check this out. However, he concludes that the theory of displaced Flemish orphans does not stand up in many respects. For instance, he suggests it is unlikely that an educated man like Richard de Calne would not have recognized the spoken language by the children as being Flemish. And similarly, concerning green sickness, there's other people who say counters the argument that much of the contemporary population should probably have suffered from the same disease and also appeared green, but they didn't. So the tone of green of the children's skin must have been something unprecedented and unusual. That is crazy. That is crazy. So apparently there is some type of kids. I mean, could you imagine? I mean, just imagine you're going out and you're out in the woods or whatever it might be. You're hunting or just walking out in the woods, and then you see these two kids that are completely green from head to toe, speaking a language that you have no idea what they're saying, and then of course them telling you eventually after they learn English that the sun never shone. It was never out. It was always twilight. That's crazy. That is crazy. Thank you very much for the 43,000 likes already, guys. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. I appreciate that. Listen to this one. This is also an unsolved mystery. And you can look this up. There's a lot of debates as to what these things are. But the stone spheres of Costa Rica. The stone spheres of Costa Rica. Listen to this. They're in an assortment of 300 stones in Costa Rica, and some of them are huge and some of them are smaller. On the Quiz Delta, it's an Isla del Caño. Locally, they also are known as the bolas de piedra, literally stone balls. And the spheres are commonly attributed to the extinct Dequis culture, and they are sometimes referred to as the Dequis spheres. And they are best known, the stone sculptures, as in the Colombian area. So they are thought to have been placed in lines along the approach of the houses of chiefs. But their exact significance remains uncertain. We simply don't know what these things are. Now, the Palmer excavations are a series of excavations of a site located in southern portion of the country, and they have centered on a site as Finca 6, basically started as Farm 6. And the archaeological findings date back to the Aguas Buenas period, which is about 300 to 600 AD. And in 2014, a pre-Columbian chiefdom settlements with stone spheres of the Quiz was added to the UNESCO list of World Heritage Sites. And in 2014 of July, a project which had been proposed in 2011 to declare the spheres as a national symbol. But it's still, they don't understand why they have these things there. According to some archaeologists, their hypothesis, these spheres could represent solar systems or just be inspired by various stages of the sun and the moon as viewed with the naked eye, including setting or rising suns or half moons. If you look at that, I mean, of course, this is not so like, oh, this is amazing, but it is pretty interesting. When you look at this, and some of them are massive and some of them are small, they're just different sizes. And thank you again for the gifts on TikTok and the 50,000 likes. Thank you guys very much for that. Now, the most recent hypothesis regarding this symbolic importance of the stone spheres was developed by Melissa Rudin Hernandez. It's a Costa Rican architect, investigated the cosmovision of indigenous cultures. Now, according to this hypothesis, these spheres are an artistic, symbolic, and spiritual creation of the universe, the center of the world, that came from the pre-Branca spirituality. Now, some people disagree with that. Some people don't. They just simply don't know what these things are. Well, hello, everybody, and hello, and welcome, everybody. Come on in. Come on in. Yeah, George, I haven't seen you in a long time. Hope you're doing well. Now, this one's really interesting as well. This next unsolved mystery, and you probably have heard of this, the Flannan Isles Lighthouse. Have any of you guys heard of this so far? The Flannan Isles Lighthouse. This is really interesting. You know, there's a lot of people. Thank you very much. I mean, they get a substantial amount of money being a lighthouse operator, but it would be a lonely life. I mean, if you're okay by being by yourself. Listen, the Flannan Isles Lighthouse. It's a lighthouse near the highest point of Elion Moor. It's on the Flannan Isles of the Outer Hebrides off the west of Scotland. So it's in there, Scotland. It is best known for the mysterious disappearance of its keepers in 1900. They just disappeared. The 23-meter, 75-foot, basically, lighthouse was designed by David Allen Stevenson for the Northern Lighthouse Board. And construction began in 1895 and 1899. It was undertaken by George Lawson. It cost basically $277,000 or so. In today's money, it was about $1,800 at that time. And all the materials had to be hauled up this 148 foot cliff directly from supply boats. And so there was a substantial amount of money. The lighthouse was first lit on December the 7th, 1899. In 1900, the entire crew disappeared. So the first record that something was abnormal on the Flannan Isles was on December the 15th, 1900, when the steamer Arctur on the passage from Philadelphia to Leith noted in its log that the light was not operational in poor weather conditions. And when the ship docked in Leith in December 18, 1900, the sighting was passed on to the Northern Lighthouse Board. And the relief vessel, the lighthouse tender Hesperus, was unable to sail as planned on December 20th due to adverse weather. It did not reach the island until December the 26th. So the lighthouse was manned by three men, James Ducott, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur, with a rotating fourth man spending time on shore. So on arrival, the crew of the Hesperus and the relief keeper found, that the flagstaff had no flag. And none of the usual provision boxes had been left on the landing stage for restocking, and more strangely, none of the lighthouse keepers were there to welcome them ashore. And Jim Harvey, the captain of Hesperus, attempted to reach them by blowing the ship's whistle and firing a flare, unsuccessful. So a boat was launched, and Joseph Moore, the relief keeper, was put ashore alone, and he found the entrance gate to the compound and the main door both closed. The beds unmade, the clock unwound, and returning to the landing stage with this grim news, he then went back up to the lighthouse with Hesperus' second mate, and a further search revealed that the lamps had been cleaned and refilled. And a set of oilskin was found, suggesting that one of the keepers had left the lighthouse without them. There was no sign of any of the keepers, neither inside the lighthouse nor anywhere in the island. And Moore and three volunteer seamen were left on the island to attend the lighthouse, and Hesperus returned to Lewis. Now, Captain Harvey sent a telegram to Northern Lighthouse Board dated December the 26th, 1900, and this is what it said. A dreadful accident has happened on the Flannans. The three keepers, Ducott, Marshall, and the occasional, have disappeared from the island. The clocks were stopped, and other signs indicated the accident must have happened about a week ago. So poor fellows, they must have been blown over the cliffs or drowned trying to secure a crane. That's what the message read. On Eileen Moore, the men scoured every corner of the island for clues as to the fate of the keepers, and they found that everything was intact. And the east landing, but was the west landing, provided considerable evidence of damage caused by recent storms. So a box of about 108 feet above sea level had been broken and its contents strewn about. So iron railings were bent over, and the iron railing by the path was wrenched out of its concrete, and a rock weighing more than a ton had been displaced. Man. And on top of the cliff, about 200 feet above sea level, turf had been ripped away as far as 10 meters, which is about 33 feet from the cliff edge. So here's the deal with this. I mean, that was a massive storm. No bodies were ever found, but there have been some mysterious sightings resulting in fascinated national speculation in newspapers. So implausible stories ensued, such as a sea serpent had carried the men away, and that they had arranged for a ship to take them away and start new lives, that they had been abducted by foreign spies, or that they had met their fate through the malevolent presence of a boat filled with ghosts. All these things were actually printed about what happened to these guys. So this was a big deal And more than 10 years later, the events were still being commemorated and elaborated on. So in 1912, there's a ballad called Flannan Isle, refers erroneously to an overturned chair, an uneaten meal laid out on the table, indicating that the keepers have been maybe suddenly disturbed. But there's really no truth to this. However, a first-hand account made by Moore, the relief keeper, said that the kitchen utensils were all very clean, which is a sign that it must have been after dinner sometime when they left. They just disappeared. And now there are some theories. Over time, thank you very much, I appreciate it. Over time, a story has developed of the existence of unusual logbook entries. And they supposedly have Marshall saying on 12th December that there was, quote, severe winds, the likes of which I've never seen before in 20 years. And he's also said to have reported that Ducat had been very quiet and that Donald MacArthur had been crying. MacArthur was a veteran mariner with a reputation for brawling, and thus it would be strange for him to be crying in response to a storm. So they didn't understand why this was written. So log entries on December 13th were said to have stated that the storm was still raging and that all three men had been praying. This was also very puzzling, as all three men were experienced lighthouse keepers who knew that they were in a secure structure 150 feet above sea level, and that they should have known that they were very safe inside. So these are seasoned individuals. So furthermore, there have been no reported storms in the area, which is even more strange. No reported storms in the area on December 12th, 13th, and 14th. There were no storms. And the final log entry is said to have been made on December the 15th, stating, storm ended, sea calm, God is over all. However, an investigation by Mike Dash revealed that the logbooks were fictional and that they were later additions to the story. So these logs, somebody lied. And subsequent researchers have taken into account the geography of the island. The coastline of Eileen Moor is deeply indented with narrow gullies called geos. And the west landing, which is situated in such a geo, terminates in a cave. And in high seas or storms, water would rush into the cave and then explode out again with considerable force. So it was possible MacArthur saw a series of large waves approaching the island and, knowing the likely danger to his colleagues, ran down to warn them, only to be washed away. Okay, but recent research by James Lubb discovered that Marshall was previously fined 5 shillings when his equipment was washed away during a huge gale. It is likely, in seeking to avoid another fine, that he and Ducat tried to secure their equipment during a storm, and they were swept away as a result as well. Now, the fate of MacArthur, although he had been required to stay behind to man the lighthouse, can be guessed to be the same situation. This person speculates that MacArthur probably tried to warn or help his colleagues and was swept away too. This theory also has the advantage of explaining the set of oilskins remaining indoors, but still it doesn't explain why the logs were false. Another theory is based on the first-hand experience of Walter Aldebert, a keeper of the Flannans from 1953 to 1957, and he believed one man may have been washed into the sea, but then his companions who were trying to rescue him were washed away by more rogue waves. It certainly is possible, but it does not explain the log. Why would you lie? Why would they lie about that? See, this is what I don't understand. This is what I don't get. Okay, so again, for those of you who are asking for me to help with, if you have a situation in your home and you're wanting my assistance, this is a requirement, and it really is. It's non-negotiable. We are requiring. You got to go to my website, bishopjameslong.com, and click on the paranormal link, and you have to fill out the form there. That's the only way we're going to get, because I can't keep up with all these requests for me to help for free. And then trying to juggle all these social media, it's too much. It's too much. So thank you very much. I appreciate that, Lynn. So if you want my assistance and you're asking me to help, I'll be happy to. But people have to follow this protocol because, again, I just can't keep up. It's just too much. So anyway, that's pretty simple. But I tell you, oh, you wanted to be a lighthouse keeper? I think, when I read this, I thought, well, there has to be a logical explanation. So why would 3 people just disappear? It makes sense that one of the innkeepers was a bit concerned about losing equipment, and he didn't want to be fined again, and perhaps maybe even terminated. He could have been fired. So I can understand him going down there to secure the whatever equipment that was there so that he doesn't get fined or fired. Okay, I get that. And I also can get the fact that it's dangerous, it's precarious. And so, yep, a rogue wave could have easily swept him over, and maybe his friend was trying to rush out there and help him, and he got swept over too. And perhaps maybe the third innkeeper was trying to come down and help. I get all that. The log story doesn't make sense. Why would you say that there was a storm December 12th, 13th, and 14th when there was absolutely no storm reported there? Doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. Okay, and here we go. Let's talk about this one. This is really crazy. You'll have to Google this. The dancing plague of 1518. Folks, this actually occurred. So the dancing plague of 1518, it was a dance epidemic. And it truly was it was a case of dancing mania. And it occurred in modern day France. And it was July 1518 to September 1518. And somewhere between 50 and they just don't know all the specific number, but we know it's between 50 and 400 people took to dancing for weeks. And there are many theories behind this phenomenon, the most popular being stress-induced mass hysteria. That was suggested by John Waller. Other theories include ergot. It's a religious explanation. There's a controversy concerning the number of people who passed. Here's what happened. This is strange. The outbreak began in July 1518 when a woman called Frau Trophia began to dance fervently and uncontrollably in this street in Strasbourg. And she kept up the constant dancing for a week, non-stop. So soon, 3 dozen other people joined in. Well, that looks like fun. They're dancing and they don't stop. Oh, come on. And then by August, the dancing plague had actually claimed 400 victims. So by August, think about that, 400 victims. Dancers were beginning to collapse right there on the scene. And it is said that some even passed from a stroke or heart attack. Now, no one knew what caused this reaction, which meant no one understood how to remedy it. So by early September, the outbreak began to subside when the dancers were sent to a mountain shrine to pray for absolution, to be absolved from whatever sins that they committed. Now, historical documents, including physician notes, cathedral sermons, local and regional chronicles, and even notes issued by the Strasbourg City Council, are clear that the victims danced. This is documented, so this is not some old wise. This actually occurred, but really, it is not known why. Now, historical sources agree that there was an outbreak of a dancing after a single woman started dancing in the street. And the dancing it just didn't die down. And it lasted for such a long time that it even attracted the attention of the authorities until the council gave up authority to the physician who prescribed the afflicted to dance themselves free of it. And there are claims that these halls were refurbished to accommodate the actual dancing, as well as musicians and strong people to help keep those dealing with the dancing mania to stay upright. They couldn't stop. Well, that backfired, and the council was forced to ban public dancing as people danced in fear. It was a punishment from Saint Vitus, or some people Vitus. And to be free of sin, many joined in on the dancing epidemic. The council went as far as to ban music. It got that bad. And those who danced were then ordered to go to the shrine of St. Vitus, wore red shoes that were sprinkled with holy water, had painted crosses on the tops and the soles, and they also had to hold small crosses in their hands. And incense and Latin incantations were part of the ritual. So apparently, forgiven by Vitus, word was spread of a successful ritual, and the dancing plague ended. So events similar to this are said, by the way, to have occurred throughout the medieval age, including the 11th century in Saxony, where it was believed to be the result of divine judgment. And in 15th century in Italy, a woman was bitten by a tarantula, and the venom making her dance convulsively. I probably wasn't dancing. She was probably having seizures. The only way to cure the bite was to shimmy and to have the right sort of music available, which was that was an accepted remedy by scholars. And of course, thank you very much. There's some explanations for this was demonic possession. There's also overheated blood as the possibility of explaining this. This is crazy. Controversy exists over whether people ultimately dance to their demise. That was the prescribed treatment, to dance it away, or to make a confession. So some sources claim that for a period, the plague unalived about 15 people per day, and because they kept dancing. But the sources of the city of Strasbourg at the time of the events did not mention the number of deaths, or even if there were fatalities. Now, there do not appear to be any sources related to the events that make note of any fatalities. But Ned Remnant C also claims that the final death toll is not known. But if the claims of 15 people passing away per day were the truth, then the toll could be into the hundreds. And they were just simply, that's what they were doing. So the main source for the claim is John Waller. He's written several journal articles on the subject and the book, A Time to Dance and A Time to Die, The Extraordinary Story of the Dancing Plague of 1518. You might want to read that. It's a pretty interesting read. The sources cited by Waller that mentions deaths were from later accounts of the events. And there's also uncertainty around the identity of the initial dancer. Some people say it was a different person, and the number of dancers involved. Some people say it was between 50 to 400. Here's what we do know. We do know that clearly there's documentation from doctors saying that people were dancing and that they passed away. And of the 6 chronicle accounts, 4 support Lady Trophia as the first dancer. But I mean, that's kind of crazy. So what are some theories? I mean, really, if you're thinking about people just going up and dancing until they pass away, some believe the dancing could have been brought on by food poisoning caused by the toxic and psychoactive chemical products of fungi, which grows commonly on grains, such as rye, used for baking bread. And this fungi is the main psychoactive product of this particular, ergotamine or something is the main product of this fungi. And it's structurally related to the drug that LSD. It's the substance between LSD was originally synthesized, by the way. So the same fungus has also been implicated in other major historical anomalies, including, by the way, the Salem witch trials. So and which would explain that, if there was a particular fungi, and within this fungi there is an ingredient, ultimately LSD, that would cause these people to hallucinate and dance and dance and dance. That's interesting. It's plausible. Now, but John Waller in the Lancet says that this theory does not seem tenable, since it is unlikely that those poisoned could have danced for days at a time, nor would so many people have reacted to this psychotropic chemical in the same way. Because obviously how you behave if you take something and how I behave, or vice versa, well, it might be different. So this theory also fails to explain why almost every outbreak occurred somewhere along the rivers, the areas linked by water. So that's interesting. There's also, I don't believe in this theory. I just because people have stress all the time. So there's one theory that this was stress-induced mass hysteria. I don't know if I know. I don't agree with that. This could have been an example, they say, of fully developed cases of psychogenic movement disorder happening in mass hysteria, or basically this mass hysteria, this self-induced anxiety, which involves many individuals suddenly exhibiting the same bizarre. Well, now this does occur in, for example, have you ever seen those healers? And people already know what to do. So they see it on television and the healer goes, whoof, and they all fall down. Everybody just falls down because they're all programmed. They know what to do. But it's interesting, as I've said before, it's interesting that everybody falls down except for the ushers. That's interesting, isn't it? So I can understand, okay, you can argue that, but I certainly don't think that even then people are not going to keep dancing until they pass on. So, and Waller actually speculates that the dancing was stress-induced psychosis on a mass level, since the region where the people danced was riddled with starvation and disease, and the inhabitants tend to be superstitious. So 7 other cases of dancing plague were reported in the same region during the medieval era. The psychogenic illness could have been created by, there's other issues with the water. So there's so many, well, they just simply don't know. And that's that they just don't know. And that's kind of crazy. Could you imagine? Yeah, the parasite. Maybe it was a parasite in the water that caused the dancing thing. I think there has to be something. It was, but there were other, not as badly as that, but there was other epidemics of what's called dancing mania that happened in Central Europe, and which was interesting because a lot of this occurred during the time of the plague. So that probably tells me this is more, I think, a logical explanation, something in the food, something in the water that affected the brain. But still, it's just so interesting how it would affect the brain to the point where you'd have to dance. So I don't know. It's crazy. That's crazy. But then, what's so cool about this story is that this actually happened. And, psychological effect from the environment. I mean, so people have argued from possession all the way to... again, some fungi. I think it probably was something that was related to a food or some type of contamination in some way that affected the brain. So I kind of think that's probably what happened. But that's my Discos will do it. There you go. Listen to this one. This is a very interesting story. The Ourang Medan. This is kind of creepy. The SS Ourang Medan was a supposed ghost ship, which, according to various sources, became a shipwreck in the Dutch Indies, modern Indonesia, in the Straits of Malacca waters or elsewhere. And after its entire crew had passed away under suspicious circumstances. They really don't know, either 1940, 1947, 1948, depending on the newspaper source. Now, some argue that the story of the Ourang Medan is an urban legend due to the fact that there were never records of a ship even named the Ourang Medan. So here's the story. So according to the story, at some point of time in or around June of 1947, 2 American vessels navigating the Straits of Malacca, which is the city of Baltimore, and the Silver Star, those are the ships, among other passersby, picked up several distress messages from the nearby Dutch merchant ship Ourang Medan. And a radio operator aboard the troubled vessel sent the following message in the Morse code, and this is what the Morse code said: SOS from Ourang Medan we float. Now listen, all officers, including the captain, perished in the chart room and on the bridge. Probably a whole crew passed away. So that was the message. So it said, SOS from Ourang Medan, we float. All officers, including the captain, deceased in chat room and on the bridge. Chart room. Probably whole of crew deceased. And after a more incoherent dots and dashes, the words, this is what it really says, I die. They were received. And after this message, there was nothing more heard of it. So when the Silver Star crew eventually located and boarded the apparently undamaged Ourang Medan, I mean, you can see that this has been documented. They actually said, yes, we know the name of the ship because there it is. The Ourang Medan, in an attempt at a rescue, the ship was found littered with people who are unalived, including that of a dog, and everywhere with the people who were passed on found sprawled on their backs, the frozen and allegedly badly frightened faces of the deceased upturned to the sun above, with mouths gaping open and eyes staring straight ahead, with the bodies resembling horrible expressions on their faces, as if they've seen this terrible, terrible monster. Thank you. No survivors were located, and no visible signs of injuries on the bodies were observed. That's crazy. I mean, the entire ship, everyone, they were obviously looking at something and they were terrified. And just as the ship was to be prepared for a tow by the Silver Star, a ship, to a nearby port, a fire then suddenly broke out in the ship's number 4 cargo hold, forcing the boarding party to hastily evacuate the Dutch freighter, and thus preventing any further investigations to be carried out. And soon after, the Ourang Medan was witnessed exploding before finally sinking. Okay, that's yeah, you're right. Cheryl says they were scared to death, literally. And again, for those of you just joining us, I have multiple chats in. So if someone says hello to me, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It's just I have a lot of chats open, not just TikTok, because I run the show on multiple platforms. So here's some theories, but I don't buy some of the theories. Unsecured hazardous materials cargo. So, for example, Bainton and others hypothesize that Ourang Medan might have been involved in smuggling operations of chemical substances, such as a combination of potassium cyanide and nitroglycerin, or even wartime stocks of nerve agents. And according to these theories, seawater would have entered the ship's hold, reacting with the cargo to release toxic gases, which then caused the crew to succumb to asphyxia or poisoning. And later, the seawater would have reacted with the nitroglycerin, causing the reported fire and explosion. Another theory is that the ship was transporting nerve gas, which the Japanese military had been storing in China during the war, and which was handed over to the United States military at the end of the war. No U.S. ship could transport as it would have, leave a paper trail. So it was therefore loaded into a non-registered ship for the transport to the U.S. or an island in the Pacific. This is pretty interesting. I think that's... Now, there is a theory about the carbon monoxide poisoning. There is someone says that there's a theory that an undetected smoldering fire or a malfunction of the ship's boiler system might have been possible for the shipwreck. Escaping carbon monoxide would have caused the deaths of all aboard, and while the fire is slowly spreading out of control, leading the vessel's ultimate destruction. So several authors note their inability to find any mention in the case of Lloyd's Shipping Register. And furthermore, no registration records for a ship by the name of Ourang Medan could be located in various countries, including the Netherlands. So while author Roy Baton states that the identity of the Silver Star reported to have been involved in the failed rescue attempt has been established with high probability, that the complete lack of information on the sinking ship itself has given rise to suspicion about the origins and credibility of the account. But why would they lie? The ship's logs for the Silver Star did not show a record of any such rescue attempt. And Baton and others have put forward the possibility that accounts of, among others, the date, location, names of the ships involved, and circumstances of the accident might have been inaccurate or exaggerated, or that the story might be completely fictitious. So why would the entire crew, why would the entire crew of the Silver Star lie about it? Now, one British researcher has found that the story of the Ourang Medan transposed to the Solomon Islands, but also with the Trieste connection in two British newspapers in 1940 and that both quoting the AP, the Associated Press news agency, this actually did occur. That is, I don't know. Is it possible that they were transporting, something that they shouldn't have? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you there, Lynn. But it does not explain then. It still does not explain how and why the entire crew was looking up and they had this horrible, terribly frightened facial feature as they were passing away. Now, of course, I have to mention this, the Philadelphia experiment. Oh, Josh, I'd have to do some research on it. The story of the Philadelphia experiment originated in the late 1955 when Carl Allen sent an anonymous package marked Happy Easter, containing a copy of Morris Jessup's book, The Case of the UFO Unidentified Flying Object, to the U.S. Office of Naval Research. Now, the book was filled with handwritten notes in its margins, written with three different shades of blue ink, appearing to detail the debate among three individuals, only one of whom is given a name, Jimmy. And they commented on Jessup's idea about the propulsion of flying saucers, discussed alien races, and expressed concern that Jessup was too close to discovering their technology. So the commenters referred to each other as gypsies and discussed two different types of people living in outer space, and their texts contained non-standard use of capitalization, punctuation, and detailed a lengthy discussion of the merits of various elements of Jessup's assumption in the book. And there were oblique references to the Philadelphia experiment. And one commentator reassures his fellow annotators who have highlighted a certain theory. So let this. So shortly thereafter, in 1956, Allen began sending a series of letters to Jessup using his given name, as well as Carlos Allende. And the first known letter warned Jessup not to investigate the levitation of UFOs. And Allen put forward a story of dangerous science fiction based on alleged unpublished theories of Albert Einstein. And he further claimed that a scientist named Franklin Reno put these theories into practice at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard in October of 1943. So listen to this. Allen claimed to have witnessed this experiment while serving aboard the SS Andrew Fairseath. In Allen's account, a destroyer escort was successfully made invisible. But the ship completely inexplicably teleported it to Norfolk, Virginia for several minutes and then reappeared in the Philadelphia yard. The ship's crew was supposed to have suffered various side effects, including insanity, even to the point of being frozen in place. And when Jessup wrote back requesting more information to corroborate his story, Allen said his memory would have to be recovered and referred Jessup to what seems to be a non-existent Philadelphia newspaper article that Allen claimed covered the incident. So in 1957, Jessup was invited by the Office of Naval Research, thank you, where he was shown the annotated copy of his book. And Jessup noticed the handwriting of the annotations resembled the letters he received from Allen 12 years later. And Allen would say that he authored all of the annotations in order to scare the heck out of Jessup. So two officers of the ONR, Captain Sidney Sherby and Commander George Hoover, took a personal interest in the matter. And Hoover later explained that his duties as special projects officer required him to investigate many publications. He ultimately found nothing of substance to the alleged invisibility experiment. But Hoover discussed the annotations with Alston Stanton, president of Vero Manufacturing Corporation of Garland, Texas, during meetings about Vero's contract work for O&R. So Stanton became so interested that Vero's office began producing mimeographed copies of Jessup's book. If you're not interested, if you don't believe it happened, then why are you so requesting all these copies of the book? And these copies, by the way, became known as the Vero edition. Besides noting handwriting of the individual named Jimmy, the anonymous introduction of Vero edition concludes that there were two other individuals making annotations, Mr. A and Mr. B. And Jessup tried to publish more books on the subject of UFOs, but was unsuccessful. And he lost his publisher and experienced a succession of downturns in his personal life. He unalived himself in 1959. So the various book writers who tried to get more information from Carl Allen found his response elusive and couldn't find him at all. And one reporter from Allen's hometown of New Kingston, Pennsylvania, interviewed his family and was handed a pile of documents and books, all scribbled with Allen's annotations. They described Allen as a fantastic mind, but also a drifter and a master leg puller. I don't know. What do you think? Have you heard of this? This is pretty famous. But there's a large, there's a large publications. There's movies even made of this. Williams says Einstein and Tesla collaborative work was this. Wow. There's people who say this absolutely occurred. Now, the story, by the way, was adapted into a 1984 time travel film called The Philadelphia Experiment. And though only loosely based on the prior accounts of the experiment, it served to dramatize the core elements of the original story. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. The experiment was allegedly based on the aspect of some unified field theory. Albert Einstein coined that and described a class of potential theories, such as a theory would aim to describe mathematically and physically the interrelated natural of forces, electromagnetism, and gravity. In other words, uniting their respective fields into a single field. And so some of these people absolutely are 100% convinced that this ship disappeared and then reappeared and then came right back into its port. That's pretty crazy for me. I would have to do a lot more studying on this, but I have heard about this, and it's quite interesting. So listen to this one. Here's these are, I'm telling you seriously. I think something is when you break this down and you kind of get an understanding, you see that there's something going on. When there's smoke, there's fire. Some theories say that the ship appeared in Germany. See, we just simply don't know. We just simply don't know, and that's the scary part. Is when you break this down and you kind of get an idea, could this happen? I think so. I don't know how, but it certainly could. But I want to share some stories about some encounters that people have alleged that they have had. And I wanted to share this with you. This is by Alice Lahota. So listen to this. Then tell me what you think about this. So this is a person who wrote this, I think, Spicy Coconut Leaf is their name. It says, when visiting my family a few towns over, I had a feeling I had to find my brother. He'd gone down a bad path in life. And as I drove around town searching for him, I had this gut-wrenching, sick feeling that if I didn't find him, that he was going to pass away. I looked around town at the nearby ponds, lakes, bridges, and streets for several hours, but I didn't run into him. The next morning, I saw him in my room, and he faded away. That day, police informed my parents that my brother had passed away a week earlier. That's kind of interesting. You know, there are a lot of people who say that they've had this experience. It's a bishop ring. It's an amethyst. Isn't that crazy? Have you guys had that experience before? A lot of people have told me that they experienced this. Oh, Skip's Grace says, yeah, you have? That's interesting. Listen to this. This is by a username with Pinocchio was framed. It says, I was walking on the sidewalk when my shoelace broke for no reason. So I stopped to tie a knot where the lace had broken. And when I looked up and where I would have been on the crosswalk, I saw that a car actually plowed into 3 people, hurting one of them seriously. My laces were only a few weeks old and never should have broken like that, but it likely saved my life. Now, that I have heard many people tell me that something had happened. They were supposed to leave 5 minutes early or 10 minutes early, and if they had, they would have gotten into an accident. That's actually happened to me before. That's actually happened to me. So there was a time, I was like running 10 minutes late, and I got on the expressway, and I thought, oh, come on, because I started seeing cars backed up, and there was a terrible fatality where it involved, I think, 2 or 3 semis and a car and it just happened. So had I had gone when I was supposed to get there, who knows? But I've had that happen to me before, and that to me is very, very interesting. Yeah. You guys have it. You have as well. Yeah, someone's asking about orbs. Orbs are not really, there's a lot of people don't really take orbs too seriously, because most of the time, orbs are just something that can be explained logically, because it's either light particles or dust. It could also be bugs, and so I talked about this before. There was a person, the clergy, and I don't know why, and people take this seriously, and I found it to be so insulting. But what he did, he would walk in the weeds, and it was at night, and he had night vision on his camera, and he would hold up a cross, and he was walking in weeds. Okay, he was purposely kicking the weeds, and in the night vision, you saw all these orbs, and he was actually performing an exorcism on these orbs, folks. It was bugs. These were bugs. He was performing exorcism on bugs, and people were buying into this. People actually believed that he was performing exorcism on demons. And when I thought, you know what, this is insulting. This is exactly why we need more education in demonology. Because he was holding up the cross. The power of Christ compels you, and you could see him kicking up the weeds as he was walking, and people were freaking out. Oh my gosh, there's one. Folks, it's in the middle of the night. You have night vision. They're bugs. He's performing an exorcism on a bug. Yeah, kind of crazy. I'm not saying all, orbs are invalid, but the majority of them we can explain. So listen to these are interesting. This is by Sarah Lemire. These are stories that people have had, and I wanted to share them with you because they're pretty interesting. The title of this is The Grandmas in the Cemetery. So Jeff, a resident of Dayton, Ohio, was driving with his 3-year-old son, Miles, in the back seat. And when they passed by a cemetery, it was a modest cemetery with only flowers and small plaques. It basically looked like a giant garden. And Jeff explains on Monsters Among Us. And according to Jeff, as they drove by, his toddler, who had been happily singing, abruptly stopped, pointed to the cemetery, and exclaimed, "Look at all those people." And Jeff turned to look, but didn't see a soul. Confused, he asked Miles, what was he talking about? He said, "All those people over there," his son replied. "There sure are a lot of grandmas." As Jeff tells it, chills ran down his spine as he asked his son what the people were doing. "They're all standing there, looking down at the grass," Miles said. Completely unsettled by this conversation, Jeff sped up and drove home. And later that same day, he says his young son was watching TV when he turned to Jeff and said, "They weren't alive." So thinking Miles was referring to the cartoon, Jeff asked what he meant. "Those people we saw, they were all paused," his son replied. I don't know if my kid has a sixth sense, Jeff says, or if he just has a wild imagination. Now, can you imagine? So this is a kid. He's a three-year-old kid. And I imagine this kid didn't know there was a cemetery. I don't know. He's 3 years old, but he looks over and says, all these people, all these grandmas, it's like they're paused. That is wild. That is pretty wild. Here's another one. And a lot of people swear about the Stanley Hotel. I know a lot of folks, they are convinced 100% that the Stanley Hotel there is haunted. Well, it says here, the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, has been around for more than 100 years, was built as a posh getaway for the wealthy seeking solitude in the mountains. So as the years passed, however, occupancy declined, and by the 1970s, the Grand Hotel had fallen into despair. It was around that time that famed author Stephen King spent the night there and was inspired to write the book, The Shining. So the book and blockbuster film helped return the Stanley to its former glory, and now guests come in droves to see the hotel that inspired one of the scariest horror movies of all time. And given its history, it should come to no surprise that many visitors report strange happenings. Aware of the ghostly rumors, Texas resident Henry Yaw booked a last-minute getaway in April of 2016 to just check it out. So after arriving, Henry had dinner, then wandered around the Stanley to take photos. And stopping at the staircase, he waited for people to clear the area, then took a picture, thinking nothing of it. Later that night, however, he fell seriously ill. He says, I felt really sick. I had the shivers. I was like, something's really wrong. And he tells today.com. His companion suggested that he go to the emergency room, but Henry refused. On the trip home, he began swiping through the photos that he had taken when he discovered what he said was really, really strange image of someone standing on the stairs, except no one had been there. The next day, he posted the photo on Instagram, half joking that he captured a ghost, and the world took notice. Almost overnight, he found himself in the limelight with a ghost picture warranting attention from global media outlets and paranormal experts who wanted to examine the photo. And of course, some experts say that there were two ghosts. And the other people said that the reason he got sick is because the ghost was trying to materialize, taking energy out of me. He said, there's so many theories about this. And what does Henry think? He says, I have no idea. He says with a laugh. Thank you very much. But it is interesting. I have seen this video. I've seen the picture. I mean, it does. You'll have to look on Stanley Hotel ghost on stairs. I mean, it does look like that. That to me looks like someone trying to like a full body apparition. Yeah, so you can Google that, and but it's really interesting. Yeah, Shelley Duvall passed away, and she was looking really rough there at the. I watched someone did an interview with her, and she was looking pretty rough. From my understanding, the movie The Shining. Now, this is what she said, that the director was constantly berating her to keep her in that mindset, that victim mindset, and she said that she never really recovered, ever. So she was really dramatized. She was, at least she said, there was quite an issue there. Yeah, I've never been to the Stanley. Here's another one called the Ghost Truck Stop. On his way to get married, a military man and his best man set off on an 800-mile road trip to Camp Lejeune in North Carolina to Lafayette, Indiana. It's 1 a.m. on a cold January night in 2014. The man tells Monsters Among Us that the weather is bad and temperatures are in the negative double digits. As a pair close in on Indianapolis, they discover that they have no money to pay for gas to refuel a car and are about to run out. It says, quote, growing up in the trucking industry with my dad, I decided to stop at a truck stop, the man explains. But because the main interstates were shut down due to the weather, they had, they got off the highway and searched for a truck stop along the road, back roads instead. It says we found a smaller truck stop that had one truck It was just kind of strange. It was just a blacked out truck with a blacked out trailer. There was no real markings on it, nothing distinguishable. And they went in hoping a clerk or a waitress would spot them, maybe a few dollars for enough gas to get to Indianapolis. At which time they go to the bank, take out cash, and pay it back. So inside, thank you very much. Inside, they found a little diner occupied by a waitress, a cook, and a lone truck driver. He says, I went inside, talked to this driver, and he bought us a cup of coffee, and we sat there and talked for about 30 minutes about what was going on and why we were headed and where we were and what we were doing. And he gave us $20 for gas. He says, I went outside, pumped our gas, came back in and told him, hey, I really appreciate it. I'll be back. So making good on his word, the man got cash from the bank upon arriving in Indianapolis and returned to the diner. And when we arrive at 10 o'clock in the morning, it's boarded up. Says it looks like it's been abandoned for years and the truck's gone, but we had just been there. They pulled in anyway and find a police officer parked in the lot, and they explain what happened just hours before, to which the cop laughs and replies, oh, you met the ghost of 3. So 2 military members conversed and had a cup of coffee interacted with 3 people at a diner that had a fuel pump. I got $20 worth of gas, says the man. And when I came back, it had been boarded up for, if I remember correctly, and the cop had said it had been boarded up for the last 25 years. That's, I just wonder I wonder if they just got confused. Well, they couldn't have got confused because they came back, to pay back the $20 that they got. So they obviously knew where they were. That's kind of crazy. I don't know. That's an interesting story. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a kind of a I have heard people have said that to me before. People have actually said that they've gone to an old abandoned hotel. There was a couple, and they had no reason to lie to me. I mean, they didn't appear to be, the people who, tell fib. They don't benefit anything from lying. And they contacted me and they said, look, we have a story we don't understand. Can you explain this to us? And they were on the road. I forgot what expressway. They knew where they were as their GPS. They had never been there before, but they saw this old hotel, and there was a sign, but the sign that was not working. But they pulled in because the lights were on. And so they came in, they went into the office there, and there was an old lady sitting there, and she said, oh, yeah, we don't get many visitors and things, blah, blah, blah. And so they said, well, we'd like to stay here. No problem at all. So they stayed. They stayed the entire night. They kept hearing weird noises, especially like people knocking on the door, and they open the door, no one's there. It's one of those motels where it's outside kind of a thing. And they thought maybe kids were playing around. So they went to the lady and they said, look, we have a problem here. Someone keeps knocking on the door, and she said, oh, yeah, we get that all the time, but don't even pay attention. So they go back into their hotel. They sleep for the rest of the night. No other issues. They come out. Now, this is where it gets really crazy. They came out of the hotel. They were going to go back to the office to tell the lady, thank you very much. We appreciate, etc. The office door was boarded up, completely boarded up. And they had just stayed the night at this hotel. And it came out, going to the office, completely boarded up. So when I talked to them, and I actually got to meet them once at a paranormal conference, I really didn't get the impression that they were lying. I just didn't. Because it really affected them, and they were completely confused. They talked to this lady twice, and that they paid cash, for the room, but they coming out, and they actually stayed the night at that hotel. So that's the Bates Hotel. Yeah, it's really strange. But I tell you what, that's kind of crazy. Well, they can, sure. Yeah. Here's there's a story called The Ghost of Captain Joseph White. So though Salem, Massachusetts is best known for its infamous witch trials, there have been plenty of other chilling stories throughout its 400-year history. And one of them is the tale of Captain Joseph White, a wealthy merchant who was found unalived in his bed And it was a crime motivated by money, according to Giovanni Alabiso, the owner of a tour guide of Salem Historical Tours, who says that the 82-year-old merchant was allegedly targeted by greedy brothers, hoping to get their hands on his will. Well, brother Joseph and Francis Knapp enlisted the help of Richard Crownshield to help get the job done. And later in the evening, when Captain White is asleep, this person comes in. He goes upstairs to the second floor, takes a club, and unalives him, obviously. The murder resulted in the scandalous trial and is said to be the inspiration for Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart, as well as the game Clue. And whether it's a brutal nature of the crime or revenge for the attempt to steal his money, the spirit of Captain Joseph White is said to still wander the halls of his former home. And people believe Captain White is roaming around that house, protecting whatever treasures he reportedly has. So tourists actually take photos of the house. And despite being empty, many pictures reveal shadowy figures, both male and female, in the windows and on the landing of the Gardner Pengree house. So it's pretty interesting. That's really interesting when you hear that it is the inspiration for Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart and the game Clue. And now you know. So his name is the Ghost of Captain Joseph White. That's crazy. I don't know. Padre Pio. There's a lot of people with Padre Pio that there's a lot of issues there, and so I know that there's folks who are who question the validity of the story. But I do know that there are a lot of people who swear that there have been miracles that have occurred from Padre Pio, either touching his garments or things of this nature. So I simply don't know. Oh, wow. Yeah, St. Bernadette, I would say. So, see, understand, stigmata is not a curse. So the movie Stigmata they got it all wrong, 100% wrong. Cases that are valid, that are real stigmata cases, nobody ever thought of it as a curse. No person who was truly afflicted with stigmata ever thought it was a curse. These are people who are very pious, very devoted and dedicated to Christ and their faith. So the idea that they're cursed with this thing, no, it just simply doesn't. Has never occurred, never. So it's I would say to me it's a big no on that one, a big no. Well, Malachi Martin was actually he was the chief exorcist of Rome, in Rome. And he left the Roman Catholic Church to get married, and he continued performing exorcisms. There are rumors and of his passing and how that occurred. So I've heard all kinds of rumors that he had passed during an exorcism and some, but he was no longer a priest in the Roman Catholic Church. So it depends on when you say. He had a great book called Hostage to the Devil, which I encourage to read if you have not. Listen to this story. This is The Imaginary Friend. The Imaginary Friend. So Jacqueline from Oklahoma says that while her memories have faded over the years, she recalls having an imaginary friend when she was young. See, her grandparents, Granny Junie and Paul Hank, lived in a small home with a quiet backyard, and Jacqueline recalls visiting them as a child. She said, I have very good memories of Paul Hank. And he would just sit under the tree with me and tell me stories. The stories were often about his life and memories of prohibition, she says. He was actually a very interesting character. The only problem? Her grandfather, Paul Hank, passed away in 1981. And Jacqueline was born in 1982. She says, I don't think I ever realized that I was getting stories from a ghost, she says, adding that the rest of her family knew of his presence in the house. She says, my Granny Junie would never stay in the house on the anniversary of his death. And she says he did not pass away in the house. I'm sorry, he did pass away in the house. And Jacqueline also recalls Paul Hank getting up in the middle of the night when she was staying at the house. She said, it never occurred to me that these memories were of an entity. And in hindsight, Jacqueline says that Even though her childhood imaginary friend was actually her deceased grandfather, it cast a different light because it was a relative and not a stranger. She says it never felt like ghost. It felt like talking to Paul Hank. Malachi Martin, Martin, hostage to the devil. So Father Malachi Martin. But again, he was laicized, so he was no longer a priest in the Roman Catholic Church as he left the Roman Catholic Church. He left Rome, actually, and he was a highly respected exorcist, and he got married, So yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, imagine if you had a child and your father passed away a couple years ago, and then your son or daughter is now telling you, oh, by the way, I'm speaking to Paul Hank. I mean, that would be kind of that. Some people don't like that. Some people don't like that idea. Some people, no, I don't want that. No, but it is kind of crazy if you think about that. Yeah. Now, I have never been here. The ghost of Stone's Public House. If you guys have ever been there, let me know. The ghost of Stone's Public House, considered one of the most haunted restaurants in America. Stone's Public House in Ashland, Massachusetts. Doesn't have a ghost problem. It has a ghosts problem. Janet Marazzini, a longtime resident of Ashland, is the bartender and manager of Stone's Public House, which was built by John Stone back in 1832. And according to Marazzini, even before she began working at the inn, she heard stories of the ghost of a young boy roaming the halls of a restaurant, which once served as an ad hoc hospital during the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918. So it makes sense. This person tells Today.com that's where they would quarantine all the sick people, she explains, and apparently quite a few passed away. So the inn is also the site for an untimely death, including that of a young girl who was struck and unalived by a train while she was playing near the railroad tracks bordering the property. Now, according to Marazzini, a father and son visiting the inn stepped outside the restaurant to watch the trains. And after coming back inside, Marazzini overheard the father reassuring his young son that there wasn't anyone else outside, despite the son insisting that he had seen a little girl sitting beside them. He's like, she was sitting right next to me. She was crying. You didn't see the little girl? And the dad said, there was nobody there. It was just you and me, buddy, Marazzini recalls. Now, other ghosts are said to haunt the old inn, including that of proprietor John Stone, who Marazzini says didn't actually pass away there, but is believed to be watching over the place. So one night when Marazzini was alone in the inn, she says she heard footsteps walking directly above her on the second floor. I was like, there's no explanation for that whatsoever. I am leaving. Still, she doesn't believe that the spirits have bad intentions. She says, I've never had that scary hair on the back of your neck, got to get out of the building feeling there. So I don't know. If you guys have ever been there, I've never been to this place. The ghost of Stone's Public House in Massachusetts. Pretty interesting. And if you guys have questions, I'll be happy to entertain some of the questions while I'm also doing this as well. Yeah, they are interesting. They're kind of crazy if you think about it. Now, I have heard this story before, and then I'm gonna get to some of the articles that I read that are really interesting. This is called The Unexpected Passenger. Well, thank you there, Desiree. In the 1990s, Julie, a resident of Portland, Oregon, was driving out the city to meet some friends when she found herself in traffic. The 18-year-old soon discovered that the cause of the slowdown was due to a dreadful car accident. And to her horror, as she passed the scene, she realized that someone had passed away. A moment later, she says, there was a woman sitting in my passenger seat. Though she admits it sounds crazy, Julia reports seeing a woman dressed in work clothes seated next to her. And despite being in complete shock, the woman in the passenger seat was even more freaked out. She says she looked like somebody who had just suddenly ended up in someone else's car. Panicked, the woman demanded to know how she got there and who Julie was. It was then that Julie noticed the woman had an unearthly quality about her and realized that whoever she'd passed on the side of the road was somehow in the car with her. Says, ma'am, you need to calm down. My name is Julie, and I'm here to help, she told the passenger. And Julie then later went up to explain to the woman that she'd been in a car accident and somehow ended up in the passenger seat. The woman was stricken. At that exact minute, they passed a clearing in the trees. With some encouragement from Julie, the woman peacefully walked toward the sun and disappeared. In complete disbelief, Julie pulled over and convinced herself she'd imagined the whole thing. Several days later, however, a story came out on the news about a trucker injured in a car accident. And before they finished, they threw a picture up and the woman that was in my car and explained that she had passed away in the accident. Julie says during the podcast, it was unbelievable. It was just too much to deal with. Wow. No, the best way, if you can also go to Cash App, if you like Cash App, Maria, it's $, Bishop James Long, all one word. So thank you. Yeah, $, Bishop James Long. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, that's pretty interesting. That really is very, very interesting. We actually, I don't know why there's some people that just, no matter what, they will not accept that. Now, tomorrow when we go here, we're going to talk about some other stories that were really, really cool. Some other, some ghost stories that I found that are really, really interesting. This is I don't understand this one, guys. If you can explain this, then please do, because I don't know why someone would do this. But this to me is very upsetting and stupid. This is in West Virginia. A gravestone at a center of paranormal mystery stolen from Morgantown Cemetery. See, this is the problem. This is what really irritates me with people who, get into the paranormal, and then they do stupid stuff like this, and then it gives the paranormal a really bad reputation. And I can't believe that when I read this, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Yeah. This is the problem. See, people are doing really stupid stuff online, and then it really does make the paranormal community look bad. So there is this is by WD TV news staff. So in Morgantown, West Virginia, a gravestone more than a century old has been stolen recently from Oak Grove Cemetery in Morgantown. The grave belongs to 3-year-old Harry Spitz, who passed away from cholera in 1912. For decades, the grave site sat undisturbed. Then, in July 1975, a worker at Oak Grove Cemetery found a hole on one side of Harry's gravesite, exposing a concrete vault with a broken lid about 6 feet down. And according to reports from the Charleston Gazette in 1976, the discovery was initially chalked up to vandalism. But after further investigation from the Morgantown police, no signs of tampering were found at the grave. What's more, a gas company could find no evidence of methane or sewer gas that could have caused an explosion. So per the Charleston Gazette, a funeral home director theorized it could have been from gas from the decaying body that caused some explosion, but others said that Harry's body was too small. The concrete vault encasing Harry's grave came out in 7 pieces once workers dig up, and the wood casket was still intact. The cloth covering the lid was rotting, but there was no signs of mildew or dampness. Inside the casket was, of course, the corpse, seemingly undecayed, despite more than 60 years passing since he had passed. And the same day, the body and casket were placed in a new vault and returned to the ground. So in the decades since this explosion, the narrative surrounding the explosion at Harry's grave has often delved into paranormal territory. No official reason for the explosion was ever given or found, and it's unknown exactly when the gravestone was stolen. So the Morgantown Police Department is asking for help in obtaining any information to help find the stone. So if you have any information, contact the department's detective division at area code 304-284-7454. This is so stupid. Area code 304-284-7454. That to me, that's a problem. So if you know somebody who did this, call the police. People will do. This is the problem. When you go to a cemetery, and this is a problem. First of all, stop screaming. They're not deaf. Okay, that's number one. So I watch these paranormal investigations in the cemetery, and they're screaming. Why are you screaming? And secondly, it is disrespectful. I mean, it's a desecration, and I don't know. So that's what happened. In 1975, there was some type of issue there, and in the Gazette in 1976, the discovery was initially chalked up to vandalism. But anyway, there was some type of explosion. And because of that, it passed down the generation to generation that something must have happened. Oh, it's paranormal, and then they steal the stone. I just don't. I don't know. I don't know why somebody would do that. I don't know. It's just truly dumb. But yeah, I don't know. Some people just, I don't. I don't. Here's what I will tell you this. I believe in a lot of things in the paranormal, but I got to tell you, I don't believe in fairies. I don't. I'm sorry. I know several people do. Okay. If you believe in fairies, all right. Okay. I'm not trying to make anybody mad, but some people get really, really defensive. But this is, I wanted to share the story with you. This is pretty interesting. It's by Brooklyn Daily Eagle. And something is happening here. Fairy doors are popping up all over Brooklyn Heights. This is by Mary Frost. This was by last June, or just this past June. They're just popping up. So in Brooklyn Heights has sometimes been called Fairy Tale of Pretty, but now it appears that the neighborhood is also home of actual fairies, the small, magical, and sometimes mischievous kind. So recently, more than a dozen fairy doors of all sizes and colors were spotted on trees on Pineapple, Willow, Cranberry, and other streets. And neighbors are speculating that the area's shady lanes and dappled nooks somehow lend themselves to the tree spirits. And many say that they feel their presence adds something indefinable for the area. So according to experts, fairy doors are actually portals to the fairy dimension. While often the doors are built by fairies themselves, the wee folk are known to use doors constructed by friendly humans as well. Folks, this is an actual article. In a survey conducted by the Brooklyn Eagles Magic and Enchantment Bureau, 100% of neighborhood respondents said they welcome the fairies. So it says, we're thrilled but not surprised that the fairy folk have decided that Brooklyn Heights is a great place to make home. Linda Bernbach, executive director of the Brooklyn Heights Association, told the Eagle, please let them know if they have any questions about landmarking permits or where they can find the Nest Negroni in the Nest neighborhood, and they should give us a call. So elected officials also saw the development as positive. Fairy doors are just the latest enchanting addition to Brooklyn Heights. As a city council member, I celebrate our community's creativity and welcome our new neighbors with open arms. Now, they don't really believe these are fairies, do they? I mean, I'm just... So, okay. So this is a perfect neighborhood for fairies. I've been Lightholm, a Brooklyn resident who works at the Heights. Some long-term residents said they've never seen so many fairies in the neighborhood. I don't necessarily. I think there's always some form of truth in these little urban legends, but I don't know exactly how it is, if it, that way. It says, this person says, I'm extremely happy they've arrived. They're in force. Dr. John Barrell, a physician and inventor, told the Eagle. These are tricky times, and we need all the help we can get. Now, come on, they've got to be joking on this. While numerous people said they have spotted the doors, only a special few have seen the fairies themselves. So one of these is Ease, age 5, who confirmed that he has seen them with his own eyes. Says, I've seen them everywhere. Once I saw one in a tree in the neighborhood close to Joe Coffee. He said it was really tiny and green, and he added, scrunching his fingers very closely together to demonstrate how tiny the fairy was. Okay, well, and by the way, and his father has even said that he sees him too. So I don't know, folks, if you're out and about and you see a fairy door, I don't know. Yeah. Well, elementals are interesting. I've had a case once with a family that had destroyed the habitat, had a lot of trees torn down. They bought some land. They destroyed a lot of nature. And then they had all this activity occur. And so a shaman had told me, look, make sure you have them just kind of repair the habitat by replanting trees, and the things that they destroyed, try to replant, and they did, and the activity stopped. Now I don't know. I'm not really an expert as far as Native American as far as spirituality, but it is interesting. It's I couldn't explain, but allegedly they said it did that work. So what that means, you'll have to make determine that from your own self. But it does. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. This is from Yahoo News. Now I don't. This I have a problem with, and I'll tell you why in a minute. This is my Molly Powell. A couple believe their Annabelle doll is possessed after CCTV shows it emerged from its display cabinet. Okay. The Annabelle doll, for those of you who don't know, it's a Raggedy Ann doll. So I knew Lorraine Warren. Now, Lorraine did not like this doll. She did not like Annabelle at all. I just find it really strange that now there's another couple who says now their Raggedy Ann doll is possessed. I don't know. But it says a husband and a wife team of paranormal investigators claim the Annabelle Raggedy Ann doll is possessed after CCTV footage shows it's moving out of its display cabinet. Lee and Lindsay Steer, 37 and 52, who run the Museum of Haunted Objects from their home in Rotherham, South Yorkshire, said that they caught the doll on CCTV flipping over their Ouija board table in the past. They believe the doll is the cause of them nearly being in a car crash and having mysterious illnesses, which, of course, once led to Lindsay being in hospital for a week. So in the museum, Lindsay has also felt something grabbed her neck tightly and has seen things fly across the room with no logical explanation, which the full-time paranormal investigators believe could be because of the doll. The doll is an identical copy of the notoriously evil rag doll in the United States that inspired The Conjuring and Annabelle horror films. And they think that theirs could have the spirit of the original. So anyway, Lee has been fascinated with the paranormal since he was 14 when he saw things being thrown around his bedroom. Since Lindsay met him on an online dating site in 2016, their interest has grown. The couple opened the museum in March 2018. And after being encouraged by the fans on Facebook and got married on Halloween. Okay, here's the problem. Let's just say that this is a true story. Let's just say it is. The one thing you should not do then is open a museum to where people can go to this place and in fact get attacked. That is a form of invitation. So I've got to say that. People need to know that. This is why I have a storage facility full of items that are not possessed. Items do not become possessed, by the way. Demons don't possess items. They possess humans. They have no desire at all to possess anything other than human bodies, because it is a desecration of the living temple of the Holy Spirit, because we are created in God's image. So that is the ultimate form of desecration. To desecrate the image of God, which we are made in, and that's ultimate form of blasphemy. So they don't possess dolls. They don't possess house. They infest houses. They attach to items that can cause you to become so obsessed with that item that you welcome it, you bring it home, or you buy an item that allegedly has demonic attachment to it. People tell me all the time I should open up a museum and do open up and charge whatever it is, and then have people come on in. I don't like that idea. No, and I'll never do it. I'll never do it, because these stories that come with these items are pretty serious. These are not something to be playing around with. I mean, for example, I've talked about this. This is an actual John Wayne Gacy painting with his signature. This is a real John Wayne Gacy painting. And there's the signature here. Now, what I do, I take these to paranormal conferences and I teach people about them, and I tell them to stay away from it. Stop collecting them. Because if you collect these items, then you are giving that invitation for a demonic to attach. You need to leave it away. You leave it alone. Leave these things alone. And I tell people this all the time, but they still collect them. They still collect them, and they just have this desire to want to know more. And then they get themselves in some big trouble. So this person says the couple opened the museum in 2018 after being encouraged by the fans to do so. Lindsay first saw a ghost 25 years ago. She believes she saw a curly-haired woman watching her, etc. So she tells the story. The doll was made in some factory, in the same factory, and looks exactly as the same as the original doll with Lorraine Warren's. But I don't know. This to me seems questionable. I don't think it was necessarily the doll. There was the heavy. This says their heavy Ouija board table was hurled over, which was caught on CCTV. Annabelle was sitting on a chair at our Ouija table. It's very solid, and it got a metal leg holding up, so there's no way it could have just fell over or collapsed. Well, certainly, I think if you have a Ouija board and you're bringing that into your home, that you can absolutely have a demonic attachment. So just stay away from it. I don't know why I can't. People need to leave this stuff alone. Leave it alone. There's nothing good it's going to come from collecting these items. And I think people are so intrigued. Then they bring them home, and then all heck breaks loose. And then they call up somebody like myself, and they expect me to come over there and fix it. But you have to understand that this is not something that's not a quick quick fix situation at all. And sometimes this can take a substantial amount of time and effort to remove that type of demonic. I just leave these things alone. And people say, well, they always tell me, well, I played with the Ouija boards for 20 years and nothing has ever happened. And I always say to them, yet. Just because nothing has happened yet doesn't mean something won't happen tomorrow. Demons are not stupid. They're very wise. They're very patient, and they're going to wait. So they wait for the opportune time. Remember, they exist outside of time and space. So 20 years for us is 20 years. 20 years for them is a blink of an eye. So they don't exist within time or space. We have to be very careful, and we have to remember that the moment you bring something into your home, and the moment you invoke, or you're trying to make contact with the demonic, people are doing this all especially on TikTok. I saw a person on TikTok that actually does a live and says that he will send a demon and attach a demon to you. And then people actually say, oh, send me a demon. I want this demon. And this person does this curse or whatever it is that they do. This happens all the time. Now, people do this because they want to get likes. And here's what's sad. Those type of, and what's really sad is I went into that just to check. It was close to 1,500 people in that room. 1,500. Asking for a demon to be attached to them. And then when that does happen, and their life goes into shambles, and then they want to call somebody like myself and say, fix it. And then I tell them this is not a quick fix. This could take years. This is not something that you just sprinkle fairy dust on it and it goes away. And I don't think people quite understand that. For those of you on Spreaker, I'm going to say goodnight to you guys. Yeah, it goes by too fast, doesn't it? It goes by way too fast. My gosh, it just flew by. I'm going to remind everybody again, I will be here tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have open mic night, so I talk about, of course, demonology and anything that you want to talk about. We just have a conversation. We just chill, and that's at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. At 8 p.m. Okay, and that's going to be on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and Rumble. Of course, it'll be on TikTok. I'll stay on TikTok for just a little longer. My friends, remember I tell you all the time, your value does not decrease based on someone's inability or refusal to see your worth. Remember, you're priceless, and don't let anybody tell you or convince you otherwise. So Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, KGREDB Radio, and Rumble. Good night. The Sacred Division has been brought to you by Bishop Long's online paranormal course. Learn demonology, angelology, paranormal studies, and genealogy. It's 100% online, and you learn at your own pace. Please go to www.bishopjameslong.com and click on the paranormal course link.